Now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today. A Louisiana father was murdered after confronting a teenage boy who broke into his house to see his teenage daughter. Now, according to reports, 34-year-old Dezmon Hamilton was shot by 17-year-old Nicholas McWhirter around 8 a.m. after he entered a second-story window of Hamilton's home and tried to visit his 14-year-old daughter. Now, according to police reports, both Hamilton and McWhirter were armed and both fired shots at each other. And while McWhirter was injured, Mr. Hamilton was declared dead at the scene in his home. Now, the police see this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the murder of this black entrepreneur, I see another incident that fits right in line with the pattern and profile I talk about regarding beta males in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that your 17-year-old Nicholas McWhirter, if he participated in this alleged murder, is definitely one of these beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis, because his behavior fits the pattern and profile I talk about regarding beta males who do not understand the concept of boundaries. Now, I understand the whole concept of teenage love, and when it comes down to teenage love, oftentimes beta males don't really have a good sense of control over their emotions, and because they don't have a good sense of control over their emotions, what happens is they wind up going to extremes, and when they go to extremes, they break boundaries that wind up putting themselves and other people at risk. Now, your beta male, when he winds up getting attention from females, oftentimes winds up getting so caught up in his feelings of lust that he winds up thinking that this is an overwhelming feeling of love. And because he's so caught up in his feelings of lust and infatuation, what happens is he thinks it's okay for him to do things because he's doing them out of love. But he's not really doing them out of love. What's happening is he's not getting control over his hormones and himself. And because he has no control over his hormones and himself, he winds up acting in ways that wind up putting other people at risk. Now, I believe that this father, Dezmon Hamilton, possibly told this young man not to see his daughter, and I believe that was one of the things that possibly motivated this Nicholas McWhirter to act so erratically and wind up breaking these boundaries to see his 14-year-old daughter. I believe that once the father engaged this man and told him, look, you cannot see my daughter, this is what wound up making this guy even more emotional, and he was probably egged on by this 14-year-old girl who wanted to see him too because she was caught up in teenage love, and because both of them were caught up in this teenage love, they probably came up with this plan for him to go see the girl, and then what happened was things escalated because this boy, breaking boundaries, wound up going up to the second story of this man's home, and he was looking to go to extremes because he was carrying a firearm. Now, a boy who's 17 years old, who is emotional about a girl and has a firearm, really shows that he really has very, very little self-control and very little discipline because he's so caught up in trying to get with this girl that he's willing to actually go out here and harm the man who is her father. And again, any man who has character understands that he needs to respect a father's authority. But when you have a beta male, especially one who comes from a single mother household, he really does not understand the concepts of boundaries, and he really does not understand the concept of male authority. Because he doesn't understand the concept of boundaries or male authority, whenever a male authority figure like a father tells him not to do something, his response is to become more defiant, because he does not see that man as a leader. He does not see that man as an authority figure, and he does not see that man as somebody who he needs to respect. No, he sees that man as yet another boy, and he sees that man as a boy who is challenging him, and he believes because this male who is on the same level as he is challenging him, he has a right to go out here and hurt him. And that's one of the reasons I believe that this 17-year-old Nicholas McWhirter came to this man's home, broke into that second-story window, and had a firearm, is because he did not see this 34-year-old man in his role as the head of household. He did not see this man as a leader, and he did not understand that when a father is approaching you and telling you what the boundaries and parameters are for engaging his daughters, what he is doing is acting as an authority figure, and you are to respect that man, and you are to respect his authority, because if you want to have a relationship with his daughters, you need to have his blessing, and you need to show that man his respect. Unfortunately, when you have a beta male who comes from a single mother household, he does not really understand the written and unwritten social rules of engagement. He thinks that he can just go out here and have access to this girl without ever thinking about respecting the rules of that man's home and respecting his authority and respecting him as a man. And this is something many beta males have a hard time understanding, and it leads to them winding up in situations like this, because these males are so emotional. All they're thinking about is all they want to do is get with this girl, and all they want to do is be able to have access to this girl, whether it's physically or sexually. And because they're thinking only about their sexual access, what is happening is they wind up being extremely out of control. And that's how the situation escalated. And this father, all he was doing with his firearm was defending his home. Unfortunately, because this beta male did not understand the concept of boundaries, he wound up shooting and murdering this man and taking the life of this girl's father. And that's the saddest part about this whole case, is that this father lost his life, and his other 3 children are not going to have a father, all because this boy did not understand the boundaries that a man establishes for his home. These other 3 children in this family, they're not going to have their dad, because the 14-year-old girl was caught up in her emotions with this guy, and this guy, because he was probably one of these pookies caught up in his feelings, didn't understand that he was putting other people at risk, all because he could not control himself and he could not navigate through his emotions. Because yes, I know all about puppy love, but I understand that there are boundaries that I have to follow. And yes, while I had those feelings at 14 and 15, I understood that there was a line that I could not cross. And the whole thing is, once you cross that line, you're going too far. And this is a lesson, sadly, this 17-year-old learned a little too late. And now, as a result of this whole shooting, he has been charged with second-degree murder, illegal use of a weapon, and illegal possession of a stolen firearm. These are all felonies that this boy is now going to be facing. And now that he's going to be facing these felony charges, there's a high possibility that he may wind up being convicted, and he's going to wind up in prison for the rest of his life. And instead of being with that 14-year-old girl who he was so infatuated with, who he's only going to be either in a juvenile detention facility or a prison. And when he's in there, he's not going to be seeing girls. He's going to be seeing guys like Bubba and Tiny, and they are going to be trading that booty for some Little Debbie snack cakes, some Fritos chips, and some cups of coffee, and some ramen noodles. And that is going to be the rest of his life, all because this male did not have a man in his life to teach him critical thinking skills, teach him how to navigate through his emotions, and teach him how to respect another man and respect another man's home. Because he did not have any men in his life to teach him male life skills, this boy is going to be learning hard lessons inside of either a juvenile facility, or he's going to be learning hard lessons inside of the prison system. And he's going to be learning these hard lessons as they turn him out. And as they are turning him out and trading him for Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, and cups of coffee, and Fritos chips, this 14-year-old girl who he had all the feelings for is going to be out here with another guy. And she's probably going to send him one of these letters telling him that things aren't going to work out while he's in jail. And he's going to sit there and probably realize that he threw away all of his life over a 14-year-old girl, and realize what he lost was more than what he would have gained as related to her attention or sexual access. And that is the most tragic thing about this story, is that this boy in crisis didn't learn the lessons of manhood, and because he didn't learn the lessons of manhood, he took the life of a man, and he wound up putting himself in a situation where he's going to be in a crisis for the rest of his life. Now, if you want to learn more about how and why beta males participate in this dysfunctional behavior that leads to them going to these extremes and participating in the spectrum of violent behaviors like this, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere.